Trump continues to double down with public safety in Chicago, saying Pritzker is nothing. And U.S. Congresswoman Mary Miller joining us live. It's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, each and every weekday morning with you here on YouTube for the Center Square. Go to thecentersquare.com where you can find today's headlines and get the newsletter each and every day in your inbox. The latest headlines, again, at thecentersquare.com, where you can see headlines like Illinois prison mail scanning rule faces lawmaker scrutiny. And you can watch some of the evidence there laid out during testimony at a joint committee on administrative rules. You can read about the story we're going to touch on. Pritzker criticizing Trump as feds make arrests in immigration enforcement blitz. But you can also see many of the other stories and the quick hits and get access to the podcast. But it's not just Illinois. Again, we've got headlines across the country. So if you want to read about Kash Patel's hearing in front of the U.S. Senate, we're going to touch on that briefly here. But you've got the national headlines there as well. So again, get the newsletter at thecentersquare.com. All right, we've got a couple of things to tackle. Of course, 8:15. We're going to talk with Congresswoman Mary Miller about several subjects, and some are going to be about parental rights. Others are going to be about political civility. We may even jump into what needs to happen in Chicago and elsewhere with public safety. So all of that's coming up. But next, we will talk about President Donald Trump's continued insistence on public safety in the city of Chicago and the ongoing pushback from Democratic leaders in the state of Illinois. So it's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for the Center Square.
I'm going to go to Chicago early against Pritzker. Pritzker's nothing. If Pritzker was smart, he'd say, please come in. Don't let Chicago die. This is the guy telling me with great knowledge and so on. He said, don't let Chicago die, sir. It's dying. Don't let it die. I'm going to Chicago next.
It's President Donald Trump yesterday late taking questions from members of the media as he was traveling, saying that he is going into Chicago next. What is that going to look like with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson pushing back and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushing back? We'll see what happens here as we wake up each and every weekday morning with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of the Center Square, Illinois. You can go and find the headlines at thecentersquare.com and get the newsletter in your inbox. Just sign up for that, and while you're there, consider donating. We're a nonprofit newswire service, free and open to you, the taxpayer, to better understand how state government impacts you, and that's why we focus on Illinois. All right, so obviously Illinois has been a big deal with the ongoing back and forth between President Donald Trump in a second non-consecutive term and Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's running for a third term for governor, and obviously a lot of speculation that Pritzker's going to run for president. But President Trump, for weeks now, after using the National Guard in Los Angeles to protect federal people and assets while they conduct immigration enforcement, He also used the Guard in Washington, D.C. To clean up crime there. And earlier this week, he announced he's going to be using the Guard in Tennessee, Memphis, I believe, where they're going to help with cracking down on crime. All of this sparking the debate about the posse comitatus and the Insurrection Act and what authority does a president have to use the National Guard and what kind of level of local involvement should there be. These are things that the courts are going to be hashing out. And again, you'll be able to follow along at thecentersquare.com. We've got an entire team across the country following this stuff. So don't just focus on the Illinois page. You can also get the national headlines with your newsletter each and every day in your inbox. But you've got the president saying he's going to use the National Guard for weeks upon weeks. Governor J.B. Pritzker has made allusions to this being out of an authoritarian playbook. Other Democrats using the term authoritarian, and we've even heard the term fascism, and so on. You can go down from there. But yesterday, Pritzker spoke to a group where he discussed the issue of immigration. He was receiving the Paul Simon Award. And this is an award that the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute gives. It's the Paul Simon Courage and Public Service Award, recognizing, as they say, a commitment to compassion and responsible public service. But the governor took the moment to address some of his concerns he sees coming from the White House.
And have us all pay attention today to the fact that there are invasions going on today all across the Chicago area into communities that live in fear. There are families in hiding. There are people who've been thrown into vans and taken away this morning. And those attacks are increasing starting today.
And the governor, again, talking about immigration enforcement, federal immigration enforcement. And you can go to thecentersquare.com and read up on what exactly is happening and see some of the evidence that DHS is providing. Kristi Noem announcing in Chicago that violent offenders were taken off the streets that morning with arrests for assault, DUI, and felony stalking. And you can see the DHS news announcement there, even with some of the worst criminally illegal aliens arrested by DHS since the beginning of what they called Operation Midway Blitz. You could see the mug shots and other photographs and details of the people that they've caught and the crimes that they're alleged to have committed. And again, these are legal aliens, illegal immigrants in this country. So you can read up on that. And again, also see the videos that were posted, including from Gregory Bovino. He's the U.S. Border Patrol Commander at Large, showing him pulling up to Chicago from I-55. Governor Pritzker, again, getting the Paul Simon Award for public service. He talked about how immigrants need to be essentially honored in the state of Illinois.
We should honor immigrants. We should not have our military, have our agencies of the federal government arresting people because they look different, or because they speak with an accent, or because they speak another language.
The governor is characterizing ICE's efforts as just merely going after people of a different skin color or people who speak a different language. When you hear what ICE officials are talking about, they are addressing criminal illegal aliens. And since in Illinois they're not able to cooperate with local law enforcement because of state law, you've got ICE that's taking to the streets, and that's going to make things a little bit more complicated. So the governor, taking a moment during his award presentation to talk about his concerns over the Trump administration, increased immigration efforts. But afterwards, the governor was asked about President Donald Trump the day before, saying that he is going to go into Chicago, alluding that the National Guard will be used. And here's what the governor had to respond to that.
Look, I have said before that you can't take anything that he says seriously from one day to the next. He's attacking verbally. Sometimes he attacks sending his agents in. Sometimes he forgets. I think he might be suffering from some dementia. And the next day he'll wake up on the other side of the bed and stop talking about Chicago. So I've never really counted on anything that he said as real. When he said that he wasn't coming to Chicago, I didn't trust that. When he says he is coming to Chicago, it's hard to believe anything he says.
Governor, obviously going off of some of what Trump has said and some of the other things he kind of walked back on, because several weeks Trump said, hey, I'm going into Chicago. We had a week's worth of news conferences from Democratic leaders condemning Trump and the idea of using the military in Chicago. And then moving on from there, it gets to where we got President Trump saying, well, maybe we wait for Pritzker to ask for help. Here again is the governor talking about ICE's actions and how he's got legitimate concerns.
I've been saying that since the very beginning, that actually they send ICE in here to cause challenges and mayhem on the ground. And you're seeing that when they go in as hard as they are, you can see that communities are reacting as they should, with disdain, with great concern, protesting. But the harder the ICE agents come in, the more people want to intervene and step in the way of them. And when that happens, and when there's any kind of, touching or engagement with those ICE agents that involves, actual potential battery, that'll be the excuse. And it's wrong, by the way. They are causing it. It is the president. It is Kristi Noem, who wasn't even willing to answer questions today. She was here for a few hours, unwilling to answer questions about what they're doing on the ground, unwilling to tell us what ICE is going to do over the next coming weeks. What we know is that Gregory Bovino, who seems to be in charge of the operations here, has a history of acting in ways that are quite violent against people, many of whom are not criminals. They are grabbing people who have brown skin, or who speak with an accent, or who speak another language, and not people who are guilty of or are accused of perpetrating a violent crime. That's who we'd like to have civilian law enforcement go after.
But you've got the Trump administration recognizing civilian law enforcement has not gone after these individuals. ICE posting last night in Chicago's Operation Midway Blitz, Venezuelan illegal alien Santiago Cristobal Medina Cortez's final order of removal was issued in July of last year. ICE arrested him September 9th in Chicago. If ICE officers encounter illegal aliens during an enforcement operation, they arrest them. If you're in the country illegally, please self-deport. Learn more about self-deportation on our website or the CBP Home app. And you can see here the arrest of that individual as the video is shared by ICE. This came up a little bit with the public safety push during a U.S. Senate committee where FBI Director Kash Patel was questioned about a variety of things, including by U.S. Senator Dick Durbin.
Did you or Attorney General Bondi provide any individual with a waiver so they could remain employed after they received disqualifying alerts on their polygraphs?
I'll have to get back to you.
You don't remember that?
No, sir. My priority is protecting the American public, not getting into the weeds of polygraphs.
And to have a decent memory when you come before a committee.
I'm happy to talk about all the good work the men and women of the FBI are doing, including provided the lowest crime rate in American history. If you want to talk about how to protect the citizens, Chicago has seen a 30% reduction in its murder rate because of the men and women of the FBI.
You take credit for that?
I'll happily do that.
Patel went on to say that it's a credit to the interagency cooperation the FBI is having with the local law enforcement, but that's not the same story for ICE. You've got the Chicago mayor pushing back, saying that Chicago police are not going to cooperate with ICE. But President Donald Trump saying that all of the public safety issues means that the federal government is going to be coming more into Chicago. What that looks like, not sure, but here's what the president had to say yesterday.
A friend of mine who is a big railroader stops in all the cities. He knows every city. He said, sir, you have to save Chicago. So I'm going to go to Chicago early against Pritzker. Pritzker's nothing. If Pritzker is smart, he'd say, please come in. So last week, over the last week and a half, 11 people in Chicago were killed, murdered, and 38 were shot. And then Pritzker, and by the way, this is going on constantly. If they lose less than 6 or 7 people a week with murder, they're doing a great job in their opinion. Chicago is a death trap, and I'm going to make it just like I did with D.C., just like I'll do with with Memphis. Now, remember this. So a man comes into my office, one of the biggest businessmen. I'll tell you, he runs Union Pacific. Is that big? Biggest railroad in the world, I guess. And he started off as a railroader. He was running a railroad, a little caboose. He was in a caboose. Now he runs the whole damn thing. 45 years ago, he started off in a caboose. I don't know what that's all about. And he became the top, so that's a good place to start. But he came in, he knows the country intimately. He's looking to do a merger by another railroad, the one that where it had the little problem in East Palestine, right? And they want to buy that railroad, as you know. It's pretty public. But I sat with him and I talked. I said, so you know every city? Yes, sir. I go into every city and I have for 45 years. I said, where would you go next? He said, St. Louis is in big trouble. He said, but Chicago is a great city. You can save Chicago, sir. Don't let Chicago die. This is the guy telling me with great knowledge and so on. He said, don't let Chicago die, sir. It's dying. Don't let it die. I'm going to Chicago next.
It's again the president yesterday saying he is going into Chicago next. We will keep you updated here each and every weekday morning with Illinois in Focus Daily, where you can get the podcast in its entirety. Go to thecentersquare.com, get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com, and wake up with us here each and every morning for more Illinois in Focus Daily. Seems to recognize we're in a different political era, but it's something that we have to have public discourse about, from things like parental rights all the way to free speech and how individuals choose to live their lives and what role government plays in that. Obviously, these are real big conversations, but having civil discussion about it's extremely important. So I'm glad to welcome in my next guest live here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of The Center Square. Get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. We're joined live this morning by Congresswoman Mary Miller here from Illinois. Congresswoman, thanks for taking time with us this morning. A lot to tackle here in the time I've got with you, but want to just get right into it. Let's talk about parental rights. This has been an issue you have raised time and time again. What are we looking at on the landscape here, especially in a state like Illinois?
Right. Well, you know, our people want to dismiss it and diminish what our foundation was in our country. It was faith and family. And definitely there has been attack on both. And I have been unashamed from day one to stand up for our Judeo-Christian values and to push back against the attack, particularly on the family. And yes, in Illinois, attack on parental rights, you could see it through J.B. Pritzker's emergency declarations going on and on during COVID. Also, the attack on home educators in Illinois when Illinois public schools have been failing colossally. They want to go after home educators. But then the most recent thing is that J.B. Pritzker signed into law requiring the public schools to do psychological exams on all public school students from age third grade and up. I believe 10-minute exams. These are going to be done by people who cannot even tell you what a woman is. And so because I know parents a lot of times are the last to know about what's going on in school, I've introduced a bill, which I look for it to pass. And it is going to require schools to have written consent from the parents before they do any kind of survey or psychological exam on the students. So basically, it's the parents have to opt into these programs.
Congresswoman, in Illinois, as I'm sure you're fully aware, you've got another issue about parental consent when a minor girl goes to get an abortion. That's essentially not necessarily consent, but even just awareness of it, right? What other things do you think that need to be protected when it comes to parental rights in this state?
This is absurd because I know from raising my children, I think I had she was either 16 or 17, went to the eye doctor to have an exam for a pair of glasses, and they would not treat her without my consent. And to do a life-changing major medical procedure on a minor child, as in an abortion, without parental consent is insane. And I think what the people in Illinois need to look at is that J.B. Pritzker is turning our state into basically a destination state for pedophiles to bring their abused young girls in for abortions, for gambling, for drugs, and every criminal activity that you can think of. He's rolled out the red carpet for illegals. He's forcing the Illinois taxpayers to pick up the tab for this. It is a disaster, and it's just one thing after another, but it is the Democrats' platform. It is crazy because they have not had pushback from legacy media for decades, and they have not had to defend their bad ideas. They are literally off the cliff, and they do not represent the American people. They don't represent the people in Illinois. People need to get involved. It is their civic duty. You have to go vote. We have the votes in Illinois to vote J.B. Pritzker and the Democrat corrupt regime out.
Congresswoman Mary Miller joining us this morning with Illinois in Focus Daily. Congresswoman, you talked about the bill that you're looking to pass. It seems very narrow, though, and just focusing on, the school involvements with mental health checks and making sure that parents have to opt into it, not opt out. What else can be done to ensure parents have rights in this country?
Well, people need to speak up and stand up. So parents need to, number one, find out what's going on in their schools. They need to demand that the entire curriculum, everything, whether it's on the computers or whatever, that it is made available to the public, and the parents need to avail themselves of that and find out what is going on in their children's classroom. They need to have conversations with their children. They need to go to the school board and demand accountability when their children are not being taught in the basics. A lot of the teachers in K through 12, which I have friends and family that are career teachers, I love them, but we have teachers in our public schools and in the universities that are frauds. They are not instructing our children in the subject matter that they're supposed to be instructed in. They're indoctrinating them to hate their country, to despise their parents, and despise our Judeo-Christian values. And they are hypersexualizing our children. But parents need to show up to the school boards. Communities will thrive when the parents and the schools work together and provide excellent education for our children. But we always have the option of taking our children out of public schools. So thank God we still have that option, and the public schools know it. So if there ever is a mass exodus, I don't remember, it was probably a decade ago now, but I believe it was Atlanta when there were some Muslim families that didn't like the sex curriculum that their children were being taught, and they took their children out. It only took a few days for the school to back down. But quote my friend Erwin Lutzer, pastor of Moody Church in Chicago, all the time. He said, evil never retreats on its own, only when it's confronted by a more powerful force. And regular Americans that hold to Judeo-Christian values need to be a force against evil. They need to stand up and speak up.
Representative, we're a week from Charlie Kirk being assassinated. The FBI, local law enforcement apprehending the suspect, seeking the death penalty for the suspect shooter. Clearly, this has rocked the entire country, and we've seen reaction from both sides here. What do leaders need to do to bring about more political civility in this country and in our political debates?
This is a tragedy for our country, for his family. He epitomized courage and love of country. I loved how he defended his faith, and he encouraged young people, but all Americans, to get involved and to fulfill their civic duty. But the reason this is so serious is that the left is wanting to scare people, the conservatives, from getting involved. And, I'm for free speech. People can say hateful things if they want, but they cannot make threats to people. And also, people that are elected officials in office should not be stirring up the rhetoric. I mean, just like J.B. Pritzker saying Republicans should not know a moment of peace. What did he mean by that?
Congresswoman, you've got a whole host of other issues that Congress is dealing with, obviously, and the political civility of it clearly is top of mind for a lot of people. But I do want to just focus briefly here on some policy stuff. You recently took part in a hearing talking about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and you've got Illinois, your constituency, the taxpayers in Illinois. Their state taxes might have to increase going to SNAP upwards to like $800 million or some of the estimates if Illinois doesn't get its error rate under control. What do you think's happening here?
It's true that the taxpayers in Illinois will have to belly up, but J.B. Pritzker is a failed governor, and we have so much fraud and corruption in that program. But I'm very proud that my provision got included, and that is that if you are not an American citizen, you cannot be participating in SNAP benefits, for one thing, or Medicaid for that, which J.B. Pritzker has rolled out the red carpet for that. He is giving them every benefit that should be afforded only to American citizens. But the other thing he's doing is issuing driver's licenses to illegals in Illinois. And I've got a bill that, I'm sorry to say, is going to cut federal funding for highways to any states that are issuing driver's licenses to illegal aliens. These are people that do not speak the language, and they're using the driver's license, which has nothing on it to discriminate that this person is illegal, to go and get CDL licenses. I've been going to truck stops around the district and asking the cashiers, how many of the truckers come in here that do not speak any English? And the answer has been almost uniform. They tell me almost all of them speak no English. And this J.B. Pritzker is a danger. He is a threat to the citizens of Illinois, and he's making us pay in lives, in safety and security, and in tax dollars.
Congresswoman, you touched on something here that Illinois could be facing even sooner as well, and we could see more federal funds withheld in jurisdictions where there's no cash bail, like the state of Illinois. What is the goal of withholding funds, tax dollars that Illinoisans pay to the federal government? What's the motivation behind withholding those tax dollars from states that don't align with the policies coming out of either the White House or through law by an act of Congress?
That's the only thing that these people care about. Well, they care about power and they care about money, but the money gives them the power to implement their agenda. And what we're saying is you have to get in line with this, particularly federal laws, or we are going to withhold federal funding. So, that's the pressure that we're going to put on J.B. Pritzker and the Democrats in Illinois.
And then finally, Congresswoman, got to talk briefly about politics here, just because we're getting ready to get into the whirlwind of the primary season and then the November general election. What are your predictions for Illinois? I mean, Trump gained votes from 2016 to 2020 to 2024, and you've got a grassroots movement in Chicago with the Chicago Flips Red group, for instance, and others across the state. What are your predictions for Illinois? Are we going to see a more purplish state than it is right now, or are some areas you think going to go for Republicans?
Well, my opinion is that Illinois isn't purplish, it's actually red, but we have so many conservative and Republicans and even registered Republicans that don't come out to vote. And we need to get the apparatus in place to, because it is legal, to go chase those ballots and get people out to vote. That is the key thing. And I so appreciate the group Chicago Flips Red. I follow them. And I think we need to inform people that the Democrats, the people that live in these communities that are most impacted by the horrible policies of the Democrats, need to abandon the Democrat Party, but also abandon legacy media. They have been lying to you. And thank you, Greg, for being an alternative source of information for people.
Well, absolutely. It's we strive to inform the taxpayers in Illinois as to what's happening with their tax dollars in state government and what's going on in Washington, D.C., so people can find more at thecentersquare.com. Congresswoman Mary Miller, thank you so much for taking time with us live here with Illinois in Focus Daily.
You're welcome.
All right. Appreciate that. And we've got, of course, much more to cover all week long. So be sure to subscribe to Illinois in Focus Daily and get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just go to your podcast server and you'll find it. But get the headlines at thecentersquare.com, where you can see the latest headlines, not just of what's going on in Illinois, but also across the country, in different states, and in Washington, D.C. So go make that happen at Illinois in Focus Daily on the podcast or at thecentersquare.com. It's the end of the show today. We'll jump in and get the news together. Tons going to be happening. We'll be watching what President Donald Trump has to say, any reaction from Democrats. Obviously in Illinois, the contention, as you've been seeing in the coverage here with Illinois in Focus, it's a lot, and we have to stay on top of it so you guys are getting both sides of this, and not just both sides, all sides, right? Because there's real lives on the ground that are being impacted by all of this. So we'll keep you posted. Again, get the podcast where you get podcasts, Illinois in Focus Daily. So if you can't catch the live show is great because you can join the chat room, and there's 230 people in there chatting it up, discussing the issues, and even posing questions. Let me just address the chat. I read some of the comments live. I read some of the comments afterwards, and it's enlightening. It's interesting to see where the audience is, but obviously when it comes to just getting you the facts and presenting it to you in a way that I am only giving you the voices, what they're saying, and letting you come to a determination about what is actually going on here. But we'll delve even deeper into these issues and more, again, at thecentersquare.com. Read the news articles free to you. Get the headlines in your inbox with the newsletter. But if you don't have time to read, we'll do what we can to unpack some of the more deeper issues for you each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Have a great Wednesday. Halfway through the week. Have a great day, guys. We'll talk soon.